What's the image you associate with your first time opening Kingdom Hearts? Is it the box art with its dark, moody backdrop, imposing heart-shaped moon, and strange characters peppered throughout? The title screen with the beautiful Dearly Beloved introducing itself to you? Golden text flying across rolling storm clouds, those trippy sequences of water, earth, and sky playing off each other as Simple and Clean blares away? Well, for me, it's at the very end of that intro when all the adrenaline finally calms down and makes way for serenity in the form of, oh, Snow White. Phew, okay, this is a Disney game. Something about this moment has always fascinated me. You're in this dark dreamscape being guided by a disembodied voice through some basic tutorials, all the while scraping your muddy boots across the faces of beloved Disney icons. And they're all sleeping, presumably? Are they trapped here? Why stained glass window imagery? It's also mysterious and foreboding, a stark contrast from the next piece of Disney content we get, those Donald and Goofy segments in Disney Castle. It's this sense of importance and intrigue that will hover over these princesses for the entire series, because the truth is they hold an immense power, possibly the most important power in this world. These are the Princesses of Heart. So, of course, seeing as this is a lineup of famous Disney heroines referred to as princesses, it's hard not to immediately compare it to the official Disney princess brand. Obviously, Disney has been known for princesses since their very first feature back in 1937, and since then their princesses formed the centerpieces of their American theme parks, revitalized the company throughout the Disney Renaissance, and became possibly the most popular thing ever as recently as a decade ago. Some might say princesses are what make Disney intrinsically Disney. So it's kind of funny to point out that the Disney Princess brand as we understand it today didn't exist until the year 2000. Why? Well, they realized they could sell a lot of dresses and toys if the princesses were sold as a joint venture instead of separated by their respective movie worlds. Somehow it took the company 50 years to realize that. So when Kingdom Hearts released in 2002, the Disney Princess line was still pretty fresh. The original members were Snow White, Cinderella, Tinker Bell, Aurora, Ariel, Belle, Jasmine, Pocahontas, Esmeralda, and Mulan. I don't need to, tell you what movies each of these characters are from, right? We got it, we're good? Early on, both Tinkerbell and Esmeralda got removed from the roster. Tinkerbell was definitely an oddball, seeing as she's not human or a princess in any capacity. Mulan is at least friends with some royalty. But Tink's doing fine. She got her own franchise to run with the Disney fairies. Esmeralda was not so lucky. I get it, she's also not a princess in any way, and her movie has some less child-friendly themes, but I don't know, isn't it kinda off-putting given some of those themes that they excise this specific character from the group? That's kinda fucked up if you ask me. I say she should either stay in, or if you were so concerned about mature themes, she shouldn't have made it past the drawing board to begin with. In any case, these 8 became the core Disney Princess cast for the entirety of the 2000s. Unsurprisingly, when it came time for KH's Princess of Heart roster to form, most matched up with this core cast. We've got Snow White, Cinderella, Aurora, Belle, and Jasmine. While Pocahontas, Esmeralda, and Mulan make no appearance in KH1, though Mulan's movie is represented through the Mushu summon, Tinkerbell does appear without any real princess prospects. This leaves only one extremely prominent Disney princess to not also be a Princess of Heart: Ariel. This has always been so weird to me, because Ariel's in the game, her whole world is in the game, but she's just weirdly excluded from the Princess of Heart Club. And it's especially strange because there's room for her. The Princesses of Heart are a group of 7. There's the 5 I listed, plus Kairi, a Kingdom Hearts original character we'll talk more about in a bit. And Alice. What? Was this a typo in the story notes? Someone mixed up the 5-letter Disney ladies that start with A? Alice sticks out like a sore thumb in this group, not just because she is not a princess by any stretch of the imagination, but also, she's small. I know most of these princesses are technically children if you look into it, but Alice is like baby. She is 10 years old, with every other member being at least 14. I know that doesn't sound like a huge gap, but there is a big difference between 10 years old and 14 years old. She just gives off a very different vibe from everyone else, at least in her movie. She can be kind of bratty and rude and impatient because she's 10. Kingdom Hearts kinda cleans Alice's slate a little bit, sanitizes her so she fits in better with the rest of the princesses. So, I ask again, why not Ariel? She seems like a perfect fit. Well, here's my theory based on no behind-the-scenes knowledge and just my guttural observations. I think in the very early stages of development, they probably did intend for Ariel to be a princess, but somewhere along the way they realized two things. Firstly, Ariel's gonna be a party member in her world, so she can't really be kidnapped or kept in Hollow Bastion without losing a major feature of the world. Secondly, she's a fish. Okay, mermaid, but you know what I mean. She can't walk around. There are some watery parts in Hollow Bastion I guess she could have technically hung out in, but it would have been real awkward. On top of this, the way Kingdom Hearts progresses, Ariel's world of Atlantica is technically optional, so it would have been difficult to ride around that if they had to include Ariel in the princess crew. So at some point, probably fairly early in development, they gave Ariel's spot to Alice, a character with legs who isn't a party member from a world you are forced to finish. I think this is supported by how anticlimactic Wonderland's story feels. There is another instance where a world ends with its princess missing, Agrabah, but there you still took down a big villain, saved the world, rallied with your crew, and promised to go save her. When Alice goes missing in Wonderland, none of the other residents really care to see her returned, so the world just kinda ends with no fanfare. Sora, Donald, and Goofy are just like, well, guess she's gone forever, let's try out this new gummy block, and the Cheshire Cat being cryptic as hell definitely isn't helping things. I get that it's Wonderland and nonsense is the norm, so maybe the story doesn't have to make sense in that way, but it comes off to me as a bit of a sloppy rewrite in the wake of suddenly needing Alice gone to be a Princess of Heart. Also worth mentioning in Atlantica how Ursula is just not doing anything to contribute to the big villain's plan. A couple of the Disney villains are guilty of this, but it's felt the most with Ursula for sure. So I wonder if maybe she was originally meant to be working towards kidnapping Ariel in this world, and that concept had to be scrapped, so she was just left with her movie motivation. Just some food for thought. I have spent way too long talking about this theoretical, good lord. Speaking of those Disney villains, they form an interesting foil to the princesses in this game. There are only 6 members of the Disney Villain Council, but if you throw Ansem in there, it matches up with the Princesses of Heart perfectly. 6 Disney characters and 1 original. Much like the princesses, Disney villains are a popular brand of merchandise Disney has been selling for years, though they aren't nearly as well defined. The roster changes pretty much every time the Disney Villains naming convention is used, so the only really concrete sense of a roster we get is from this Epcot event that groups the most often used ones as the 13 Reflections of Evil. I feel like there's a KH joke to be made here, but I just can't see it. These are the Evil Queen, Chernabog, the Queen of Hearts, Captain Hook, Maleficent, Cruella de Vil, Ursula, Gaston, Jafar, Oogie Boogie, Scar, Hades, and Dr. Facilier. Okay, it would be kinda sick to have a data org with these 13 though. I've also seen versions of this list that exclude Gaston and Oogie Boogie, presumably because Oogie isn't a Walt Disney Animation Studios creation, and Gaston is pretty aesthetically out of place in the group. The council as seen in KH1 consists of Captain Hook, Ursula, Jafar, Oogie Boogie, and Hades, with Maleficent as the leader. Unlike the princesses, these picks feel much more defined by the world selection of the game. Though pretty big names in the Queen of Hearts and Chernabog are excluded from the council despite being in the game, and Maleficent herself has no Sleeping Beauty world to call her own. Interestingly, Sleeping Beauty and Aladdin are the only 2 properties to have both a Princess of Heart and a member of the Villain Council. Sleeping Beauty gets a pass since it adds a bit of personal vendetta into the mix for Maleficent as the leader. Aladdin though? Here's a world, a summon, a princess, and a villain. Why? Probably because Aladdin slaps. It's a banger movie. It fits so well into everything Kingdom Hearts is trying to be that it just makes perfect sense for it to get this much. It is only behind Hercules as the most often represented Disney property in the series. Agrabah is such an important and pivotal world in this game because of all this stuff, and I love it for that. Best KH1 world, don't at me. In any case, I mainly wanted to bring up the Villain Council just to point out that, unlike the Princesses of Heart, this concept dies with KH1. The princesses are this pivotal piece of KH lore that consistently gets utilized, but after KH1, the Disney villain ranks are reduced to Maleficent and her lovable sidekick Pete, the laughingstocks of the KH universe. In a way, it echoes the real brands these groups are based on. The princesses are this well-defined and continuously relevant roster. The villains are a general concept with ever-shifting priorities and a much more niche market. But perhaps the KH princesses were always pre-baked to be important long-term. After all, one of the main characters of the Kingdom Hearts story is a member, Kairi. Told you we'd get back to her. One of the big reveals of this story is that Kairi is, in fact, the 7th Princess of Heart. And despite being the same age as Snow White, she's somehow closer in height to Alice. RIP. It's always fun when out there Disney properties make their own take on the major Disney conventions, in this case their own original Disney princess. She's certainly original. And if we want to be snooty, she's not technically a princess, she's the adopted daughter of the mayor of Destiny Islands, which I guess is as much of a princess as Pocahontas or Mulan, so sure. Though Kairi isn't even from Destiny Islands, she's from Radiant Garden. Even as early as KH1, we see flashbacks of Kairi and her grandma in the Hollow Bastion library. Plus, the reports already reveal how Ansem, who we'd later learn is Terranort, sent her away in hopes that her light would find the Keybearer. The Ansem reports in KH2 further confirm how the Radiant Garden crew seems to already recognize that Kairi is a Princess of Heart. Wait, is Kairi the actual princess of Radiant Garden? She seemed to live in the castle, right? Ansem, the Sage King of Radiant Garden, owns that castle. Unless he's just letting them squat there, they must be residents. Would this mean Ansem the Wise is Kairi's dad? Or at least uncle? Or maybe he wrested power away from Kairi's family in some kind of revolution. In any case, his reports make it explicitly clear he knows Kairi is a Princess of Heart. Does he recognize how that could be construed to mean she's actual royalty? As far as I can tell, there's nothing in the games that disproves the idea of Kairi being a literal princess, other than like Ansem not bringing it up when she's in the room. And honestly, the whole scene where Kairi's princess status is revealed in KH1, coupled with the KH1 reports, is convincing me that maybe this was 100% the plan at first, and maybe they just backpedaled a bit and decided not to explore the idea once the Ansem isn't really Ansem stuff started happening. But I don't know, I'm down for Kairi, Princess of Radiant Garden, to be canon. Hell, Ansem's not up for the job, let her be queen. Fuck it, that could be fun. Give the poor girl some agency in this series. But you know, in all this talking about the roster, I've yet to actually talk about what the princesses actually do. When brought together, the 7 maidens have some nondescript immense power. This power can be used to open keyholes such as the final keyhole in Hollow Bastion, the ultimate goal of Maleficent and company. After this keyhole is opened, they seem to have the ability to hold back the darkness seeping through it. They also give Sora Firaga. I don't know if that's like a canon ability they have or just story and gameplay segregation, but there you go. In general, the Princesses of Heart have some pretty potent light magic that is most effective when they are all brought together. They can seemingly do very little magic, if any, on their own. Though I suppose Kairi is an exception as she at least gets some basic spells eventually. Despite the Princesses of Heart being the crux of Maleficent's plans in KH1, Sora, Donald, and Goofy aren't made aware of that fact until they're already at the top of Hollow Bastion. It's something only the player is let in on, which is kinda cool. Those stained glass platforms in the opening, combined with the villain's perspective cutscenes, clue the player into the greater machinations at play, while SDG focus more on finding their lost friends. And that pretty much covers KH1. While the role of the princesses in the story is absolutely the most prominent here, it's surprising how consistently these ladies are brought up and expanded upon throughout the series. In KH2, they barely get mentioned as the password to Ansem's computer, but this alone has interesting implications. First of all, Ansem knows who they all are. The KH2 reports confirm this. The question is how? It seems that for certain characters, the identities of the Princesses of Heart is just common knowledge, but it's not for others because Captain Hook and Maleficent thought Wendy might be a Princess of Heart before realizing it was Kairi, right? So it's not like this just comes with knowledge of the greater KH world, it's information that has to be learned somehow. Also worth noting, we finally get a full Beauty and the Beast world for Belle, and Mulan finally gets her time to shine, though much like Ariel, she gets excluded from the Princess of Heart cast. Also, one more of those 13 major villains appears, that being Scar. Birth by Sleep gives us some juicy lore as we learn that the Keyblade Masters of the Land of Departure seem to take a personal responsibility in protecting the Princesses of Heart. Since they act as beacons of light, when the unversed threat is at large, the Wayfinder trio must journey to the worlds of Snow White, Cinderella, and Aurora in order to protect them. Something I never registered until right now, but Radiant Garden comes right after those 3 worlds, and there's a princess to protect there too. Ain't that something? I guess after this, everyone goes to non-princess worlds because no one's really interested in following Ericus's instructions anymore. Of course, we also learn that Xehanort is the one who told Maleficent about the Princesses of Heart and other worlds, so that's how she found out. Ericus got his instructions from Yen Sid, so it seems knowledge of the Princesses of Heart is passed down through Keyblade Masters sworn to protect them, and otherwise the info is kept hush-hush. The new Snow White world also gives us one more of our 13 major villains in the Evil Queen, the first time one of these villains appears where you can't actually fight them. Well, okay, I guess the Queen of Hearts didn't have a fight, but you could attack her during the Crank Tower and she will react to being hit. If that's not a fight, I don't know what is. Brief stop at Dream Drop just to mention that Esmeralda finally got to appear as the only major princess in the game. Let's fucking go! Redemption for my girl! Please ignore that Minnie is a princess here. Believe it or not, we gotta stop down at Union Cross because it's surprisingly interesting. Have you ever noticed how of the 8 Disney worlds in this game, 6 of them are the Princess of Heart worlds? If you don't want to count Kyrie and Radiant Garden for timeline reasons, every Princess of Heart world appears. The 2 extra worlds are Olympus Coliseum, which I think just got in for tradition's sake. It's been in every single one of these goddamn games. And the Wreck-It Ralph worlds, which were a late addition that directly impacted the Union Cross story, seeing as it's pivotal in the group discovering they're in a data world. Also, it sort of is a princess world, if you squint. We'll talk more about Vanellope later. In any case, I think the choice to use the princess worlds in this way is great. The whole premise of Union Cross is that you are gathering lux, particles of light, for your union. So it makes all the sense in the world that everyone would go looking for lux in the worlds with the highest concentration of light, aka the worlds harboring the princesses. That's some really underrated synergy right there. It's also just very satisfying to my brain to see all 6 of these worlds in one game. And since Dark Road builds off of Union Cross's base, it makes sense that these soon-to-be Keyblade Masters know about the Princesses of Heart. They've been to all their worlds. And thus that knowledge gets passed down all the way from Ephemer to Yensid, Eragus, and Xehanort, and then to characters like Mickey, the Wayfinders, Maleficent, and Ansem. So what once seemed like a strange piece of knowledge these characters have, now has a defined origin point that makes sense. I love that! Also, Gaston is here, marking the final member of our 13 main Disney villains to appear in Kingdom Hearts. The only missing members are Cruella de Vil and Dr. Facilier. I think they're both iconic enough to hopefully get their time in the sun soon. And that brings us to KH3, which has sparked a whole new chapter of discussion surrounding the Princesses of Heart. As it turns out, these ladies get an early retirement as they can pass on their power to the new generation. It's unclear how exactly this happens. The princesses do have knowledge of other worlds, but it doesn't sound like they picked specific candidates. It seems like instead they sort of released their power into the open for a worthy soul to inherit. That's the only way I can really wrap my head around the way these new 7 hearts are talked about in KH3. I feel like there wouldn't be this much uncertainty about who qualifies unless this was the way it worked. Not to mention how we don't even know all of them yet. Story-wise, the new 7 hearts are positioned as the motivation for the Guardians of Light to gather. Xehanort needs 7 lights to fight his 13 darknesses, and if Yensid's crew doesn't get their shit together, he's gonna go out murdering princesses. Getting to meet some of these new princesses in-game, innocent people with no knowledge of their greater role, really lights a fire under Sora's ass, which I think helps elevate the KH3 Disney World visits. The whole time you're getting a window into what's at stake if you don't stand up to Xehanort. It's a much less active role than what the princesses got in KH1, but I like it all the same. So, who are these new 7 hearts? Well, that name is actually kind of a misnomer. It's actually 6 new hearts, plus the return of Kyrie. Which makes sense. I can't really imagine them cutting or replacing the one original character in the lineup. But 6 new hearts isn't even entirely accurate because we only know about half of those. There are 3 hearts that are still complete mysteries. But for now, the members we get to know about are Rapunzel, Anna, and Elsa. This is a major deviation from the canon Disney Princess cast. In between the release of KH1 and KH3, there were 3 new princesses added to the canon. Tiana in 2010, Rapunzel in 2011, and Merida in 2013. Notice anything missing? Yup, Frozen is nowhere to be seen. At this point, it's sort of an infamous fun fact that Frozen was so successful that it made more financial sense to sell Frozen merch separately from any Disney Princess merch. But that didn't stop Kingdom Hearts from counting Anna and Elsa as part of the new 7 hearts, so they get to join the ranks with Alice and Kyrie as the technically oddball picks. To be fair, Disney themselves have nonchalantly grouped Anna and Elsa in with the other princesses when it was convenient, such as in Ralph Breaks the Internet. That movie also included Moana a full year before she was properly integrated into the brand. And of course, Vanellope. In her case, this was always meant to be in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way. Vanellope never quite fit the mold the Disney Princess line was always known for, despite being an animated Disney princess, lowercase p. Ralph Breaks the Internet is obviously just playing off of that little disparity for humor's sake, and it made for the best part of that movie, so why the hell not? Point being, I don't think anyone seriously counts Vanellope as a Disney princess, though it's understandable to see Anna, Elsa, and Moana here and assume they are part of it since they aren't treated any differently from the rest. Okay, so KH3 decided that the Frozen girls counted as princesses. Big whoop. The average person aware of these properties probably thinks the same way, so what's the harm in it? Well, there is a certain major aspect of the Princesses of Heart I've been avoiding talking about up to this point because it only becomes particularly relevant with Elsa's inclusion. Every Princess of Heart is a quote-unquote pure light. In Kingdom Hearts, this is a being that has no darkness within them whatsoever, to the point where they are incapable of forming a Heartless. As far as I know, the Princesses of Heart are the only naturally occurring pure lights in the KH universe, which is effectively what grants them this prestigious title, and the new Seven Hearts inherit that status. However, in Elsa's case, the whole conversation is centered around whether or not she'll give in to darkness. This is why I assume the whole Princess of Heart inheritance process is one where you have to earn that title. Otherwise, this whole conflict makes no sense. Elsa chooses whether to believe her power is of light or darkness, and that choice informs her Princess of Heart status. Unbeknownst to her, she is proving herself a pure light. I kinda call bullshit on that though. Elsa's totally got some darkness in her, right? She pushes people away, makes selfish choices, attacks her sister both accidentally and on purpose. So I guess that begs the question of what constitutes darkness within someone. The whole idea of the pure light devoid of darkness to me echoes the personalities of those Golden and Silver Age princesses, Snow White, Cinderella, and Aurora. Seemingly perfect people that hold no malice or grudges, paragons of virtue that are often criticized for their boring and lackluster personalities. Newer princesses like Belle, Jasmine, Rapunzel, and Anna are certainly more complex and quicker to express themselves, but still comfortably fit in that pure light persona. Their flaws lie more in the realm of naivete or stubbornness rather than anything I'd call darkness. Though Jasmine does take unapologetic pleasure in her tiger assaulting a man. That's gotta be like a little darkness, right? Perfectly justified darkness, mind you, but darkness all the same. We already talked about how Alice sort of gets sanitized to better fit as a pure light, so Elsa's really the only member that doesn't fit that mold. My instinct is to say that the pure light concept is sort of arbitrary, or at least isn't meant to dictate anything about the character's personality. So then why is Kairi the way that she is? This character so often gets criticized for giving us absolutely nothing, and I've always assumed the reason for that is because they aren't allowed to give her any interesting flaws or challenges. That would mean she has darkness, and we can't have that. It's easy to say that Kairi has been done dirty just because the Kingdom Hearts team doesn't know how to write women. But I don't know, everyone seems to like Naminé, Larxene, Xion, Aqua. It's just Kairi that gets the short end of the stick. Not to mention the male Pure Light character that everyone seems to think is boring, Ventus. From my understanding, Ven isn't naturally a being of pure light. The events of Union Cross and Birth by Sleep both forcibly remove the darkness from him. But admittedly, I could be wrong there. Maybe he's our secret 8th princess. Anyway, the point is, the two characters most often maligned for their boring personalities are the ones who are pure lights. There's no way that's a coincidence. So I say, if Elsa's allowed to be a pure light despite her angst being off the charts, then Kairi and Ventus should be allowed their own special blend of actually interesting characterization. The pure light angle should not be an excuse for lazy writing. Or just say fuck it and let them have a little darkness. When has darkness ever hurt anyone in this series? Hell, one of the reasons I think Sora works so well as a character despite his goody two-shoes and Disney-pilled nature is that he's always characterized with a little bit of darkness in there, whether it manifests through his heartless, anti-form, or rage form. So he's allowed to do some lighthearted ribbing, get angry, give up, and scream in anguish, even though from an outsider's perspective, he's probably the most pure light thing in media, right next to Mickey Mouse, who also apparently has some darkness according to KH lore. So yeah, let Ven and especially Kairi take cues from Sora. If darkness is truly off the table, then at least let her take cues from Elsa. Perhaps even in a theoretical KH4 world based off Frozen 2. Check out my friend Syllablosom's video on that very concept. Well, that's about everything I wanted to explore regarding the princesses we know about. Ah, but there is the kicker. What of the ones we don't know about? There are still 3 slots to fill, and I do expect they'll be filled by the end of KH4. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, we need to talk about Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, the next mobile entry in the KH series. Why? Well, this is an immediate follow-up to Union Cross, a game that, as we discussed, integrated the Princess of Heart worlds expertly, so I'm inclined to look at Missing Link with some expectation that this concept might be relevant. After all, one of the few Disney worlds we've seen in Missing Link trailers is none other than the Kingdom of Corona, home to one of our confirmed new 7 Hearts, Rapunzel. Not only that, but there is an unidentified tropical world seen in the beta that many suspect to be based on Moana. I think it's absolutely worth considering that, in the same way that Union Cross included all the original Princess of Heart worlds, Missing Link may very well include all the new 7 Hearts worlds. This would mean the return of Arendelle, as well as the introduction of our 3 new faces, one of which would presumably be Moana, easily the safest bet of the bunch. This is an exciting prospect because a mobile game is more likely to include more obscure or less relevant properties. So worlds based on something like The Princess and the Frog or Brave feel much more plausible than they would for something like KH4. Maybe Tiana and Merida will get their time in the spotlight as the final princesses. Or not. You never really know with these things. Story-wise, since Missing Link takes place well before the events of KH1, which were the catalyst for the original princesses passing on their power, it would be confusing to explain why the new Seven Hearts worlds happen to be the ones we're going to. But Union Cross got away with it using the whole Book of Prophecies projection explanation, so it's not impossible. In any case, I do think it's safe to rule out any major characters we've already met. For both in-universe and out-of-universe reasons, I doubt they want to double back to someone like Ariel or Mulan to fill a slot here. It wouldn't make any sense for them to have not been mentioned in KH3, assuming the organization is aware of all the worlds Sora and company are aware of. Not to mention Ariel was a summon, so that would just be incredibly awkward. In that same vein, I am not holding out hope for our edge cases of Esmeralda, Vanellope, or Tinkerbell. Oh, and I guess Wendy. Sorry, Hook.
What? So Wendy's not one of the chosen ones?
Pulling back the curtain a bit, the new Seven Hearts are obviously a way to inject some newer, more marketable Disney faces into this tried and true Kingdom Hearts concept, and the devs aren't gonna wanna just prop up previously passed over characters. If KH3 is anything to go by, the world inclusions are almost certainly going to define who our final 3 hearts will be. Luckily for me, I've already perfectly predicted what worlds will be in KH4 about this time last year actually. So, looking at my picks, we of course have the obvious candidate in Moana, but the other 2 are a little harder to spot. They certainly don't match up with the official Disney Princess branding, but we know Kingdom Hearts is willing to deviate from that. They have removed the word princess from the title after all. The most obvious second pick is probably Mirabelle. I know part of her character arc is that she doesn't need any kind of gift to be special, and calling her a pure light might sort of invalidate that. But I don't know, I think you could easily spin it the other way. Since we have to earn our Princess of Heart title this time, it's Mirabelle's inherent personality and willingness to do good by others that earned her the title, and not any kind of magic. I feel like the theme of her specialness coming from herself and her actions is maintained that way. Also, Encanto is crazily popular. I'm sure the devs are chomping at the bit to utilize it as much as possible. And for my third pick, guys, I think it's gonna be Princess Leia. I know a lot of people aren't comfortable with Star Wars and KH, much less it being implemented in such a core way, but I don't know, she seems like the perfect remaining candidate. She's certainly the one who most acts like an actual political leader. I feel like a group of princesses can use at least one character like that. And she's kind but authoritative, a real hero who fights for what she believes in to snuff out the darkness of the world. Sure, she gets fed up with Han Solo, but who the hell wouldn't? I think Leia is totally pure light material. So yeah, I guess my official prediction is Moana, Mirabelle, and Leia as the rest of the new Seven Hearts. Not to mention that, since I do think Arendelle will be returning in KH4, the only absent member of the group for this game might be Rapunzel. And you know what? If Olympus can be a cutscene-only world, why not Corona? I think this setup might be a big opportunity to let the princesses have a big role in this game. I assume they're going to be relevant in some way, as they have been for every major title in the series. Seeing as the Master of Masters and his apprentices are 7 characters that are trying to eliminate darkness, maybe they'll be attempting to use the princess's powers to achieve such a feat. I certainly doubt the new Seven Hearts plotline will be dropped. The Princess of Heart concept feels pretty integral to the series if you ask me. So maybe it's wishful thinking, but I'd love to see our ragtag crew of Rapunzel, Anna, Elsa, Moana, Mirabelle, and Leia roll up to the Master of Masters with Queen Kairi at the head ready to kick some ass. I could end this there, but it'd be boring to not talk through all the other candidates from our official lineup. We already touched on Tiana and Merida. I do feel like their chances might have slipped away when they were turned down for KH3, but if Missing Link is willing to take a chance on these ladies, they could very well make the cut, and I would like to see both of them get the KH treatment. Pocahontas much less so. That movie is better left forgotten. There's a reason it's the only Renaissance film yet to be included in KH. Not impossible, but I'd be incredibly surprised to see it. Along with Moana getting added to the brand in 2019, there is one more new princess to consider, Raya, who was added in late 2022, early 2023. Funnily enough, because the kingdoms in Raya are named after the body parts of a dragon, and Raya comes from the Kingdom of Heart, Raya is literally the Princess of Heart. That's just Kind of hilarious. I do think Raya and the Last Dragon is likely in terms of KH4 world candidates, and if there are more than 8 worlds in the game, I could see Raya stealing Mirabelle's or Leia's spot as one of the new 7 hearts. But out of everyone we've talked about, I think Raya is the worst candidate when it comes to being a pure light. Her entire movie is about how distrusting and cynical she is towards everyone and everything, to the point where she is very capable of angrily lashing out and attacking with intent to kill. I'm not saying it's impossible to justify her as a pure light, they did their best to justify Elsa, but it's gonna take a lot more convincing with Raya. I guess we should also address Asha, the newest potential member of the Disney Princess cast. I'm sorta boldly assuming that she's gonna be added within the year since she seems blatantly designed to be part of the group. That said, I do think her movie's just a tad too recent to be reasonably considered for KH4. It's hard to get a clear read on this because we have no clue when KH4 is releasing, but in the past I've mapped out the time gap between a Disney movie's release and it getting representation in Kingdom Hearts. With KH3 in 2019, the newest movie represented was nearly 5 years old, 2014's Big Hero 6. Now, if I'm boldly assuming KH4 might come out in 2026, that leaves 2021 and 2022 as the general cutoffs, at least for Worlds. Wish was late 2023, thus missing that cutoff. Obviously, I could be surprised. Tron Legacy made it into Dream Drop distance in early 2012 when the movie released in late 2010, so anything's possible. But I also only think that happened because Nomura really likes Tron. Of course, older games had some relatively recent movies too, but a modern world means modern dev times, so I'm looking at KH3's timeframe for reference. Sorry, Asha, maybe next time. Alright, let's get nuts. We got the basic, obvious picks done. Where are the weirdos? Maid Marian from Robin Hood. Would be a surprise for sure and our only animal representative, but otherwise she actually qualifies pretty well. Royalty, pure light, popular, sure, why not? Eilonwy from The Black Cauldron. You know, as much as I don't like this movie, I really wouldn't be against this. Never gonna happen though. Nala from The Lion King. Much less anthropomorphized than Marian, but her raw star power being from one of the most popular Disney movies might make up for that. Too bad she was already in KH2 though. Meg from Hercules. I am tired of Hercules content, please no more. Jane from Tarzan. If Edgar Rice Burroughs will let the Tarzan cast out of whatever boat cage they're trapped in, maybe, but for now copyright will strike her down. Cusco from The Emperor's New Groove. Fuck yes. Kida from Atlantis the Lost Empire. Bonus points for actually being a princess, but I'm sorry, only Disney dorks know this movie exists and it came out over 2 decades ago. Not happening. Giselle from Enchanted. Apparently she and Jane were big snubs from the official Disney Princess brand. If KH4 is gonna be all live action world, she might actually have a shot. I'd be down for this. Judy Hopps from Zootopia. This is one that's actually on my KH4 world predictions, and honestly, I'd be down to see this over Leia just cause it'd be kinda funny. If you say bunnies can't be princesses, you watch this movie wrong. Sophia the First. No. Elena of Avalor. No. Ada and Dot from A Bug's Life. Assuming the rest of the group doesn't accidentally step on them immediately, this would be kinda fun. Jessie from Toy Story 2. What? Really? The fuck is the Disney Wiki on including her? No, she's a cowgirl. I feel like that's as far from a princess as you can get. Melody from The Little Mermaid 2. Now we're talking. If Ariel got snubbed, let Melody take the throne. It's her time. Avenge your mother and smite the darkness. Anyway, like, comment, and subscribe. I'm gonna go to Disney World and ride Tiana's Bayou Adventure to stay on theme for this video. Still haven't seen the new Fantasmic either. Maybe that's got some princess stuff in it. Bye-bye.